Senator Warren.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, Mr. Kennedy, I want to start with something that I think you and I agree on, and that is that Big Pharma has too much power in Washington. You said that President Trump asked you to, quote, clean up corruption and conflicts. Sounds great. You've said that you will, quote, slam shut the revolving door between government agencies and the companies they regulate. That also sounds great. So here's an easy question. Will you commit that when you leave this job, you will not accept compensation from a drug company, a medical device company, a hospital system, or a health insurer for at least 4 years, including as a lobbyist or a board member?
Can you just repeat the last part of the question? Can I commit
You're
to
not going to take money from drug companies in any way, shape, or form.
Who? Me?
Yes, you.
Oh. Yeah, I'm happy to commit to that.
Okay, good. That's what I figured. I said it's an easy question to start with.
Hey, Patriots. Welcome back to the channel, where we call out Washington's hypocrisy and defend the truth, no matter how much the left tries to twist it. Today, we're breaking down an absolutely wild Senate hearing exchange between Senator Elizabeth Warren and Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who is up for Secretary of Health and Human Services. Get ready, because the left's double standards and anti-freedom agenda were on full display.
And I think you're right on this question.
I don't think any of them want to give me money, by the way.
Let's keep going. You're right because to say yes, because every American has the right to know that every decision you make as our #1 health officer is to help them and not to make money for yourself in the future. So I want to talk more about money. I'm looking at your paperwork right now. In the past 2 years, you've raked in $2.5 million from a law firm called Wisner Baum. You go online, you do commercials to encourage people to sign up with Wisner Baum to join lawsuits against vaccine makers. And for everyone who signs up, you personally get paid. And if they win their case, you get 10% of what they win. So if you bring in somebody who gets $10 million, you walk away with $1 million. Now, you just said that you want the American people to know you can't be bought. Your decisions won't depend on how much money you could make in the future. You won't go to work for a drug company after you leave HHS. But you and I both know there's another way to make money. So, Mr. Kennedy, will you also agree that you won't take any compensation from any lawsuits against drug companies while you are secretary and for 4 years afterwards?
Well, I'll certainly commit to that while I'm secretary. But I do want to clarify something because you're making me sound like a shill. I put together that case. I did the Science Day presentation to the judge on that case to get it into court.
Mr. Kennedy, it's just a really simple question.
Yeah,
You've taken in $2.5 million. I want to know if you will commit right now that not only will you not go to work for drug companies, you won't go to work suing the drug companies and taking your rake out of that while you're secretary and for 4 years after. It's just
I'll commit to not taking any fees from drug companies while I'm secretary.
No, I'm asking about fees from suing drug companies. Will you agree not to do that?
You're asking me to not sue drug companies,
no,
and I'm not going to agree to that,
drug
Senator.
Companies as much as you want.
I'm not going to agree to not sue drug companies or anybody.
So let's do a quick count here of how, as Secretary of HHS, if you get confirmed, you could influence every one of those lawsuits. Well, let me start the list. You could publish your anti-vaccine conspiracies, but this time on U.S. government letterhead, something a jury might be impressed by. You could appoint people to the CDC vaccine panel who share your anti-vax views and let them do your dirty work. You could tell the CDC vaccine panel to remove a particular vaccine from the vaccine schedule. You could remove vaccines from special compensation programs, which would open up manufacturers to mass torts. You could make more injuries eligible for compensation, even if there is no causal evidence. You could change vaccine court processes to make it easier to bring junk lawsuits. You could turn over FDA data to your friends at the law firm, and they could use it however it benefited them. You could change vaccine labeling. You could change vaccine information rules. You could change which claims are compensated in the vaccine injury compensation program. There's a lot of ways that you can influence those future lawsuits and pending lawsuits while you are Secretary of HHS. And I'm asking you to commit right now that you will not take a financial stake in every one of those lawsuits so that what you do as Secretary will also benefit you financially down the line.
I'll comply with all the ethical guidelines.
That's not the question. You and I, you have said
You're asking me, Senator, you're asking me not to sue vaccine pharmaceutical companies. Yeah, you are. That's exactly what you're doing.
Look, no one should be fooled here. As Secretary of HHS, Robert Kennedy will have the power to undercut vaccines and vaccine manufacturing across our country. And for all of his talk about follow the science and his promise that he won't interfere with those of us who want to vaccinate his kids, the bottom line is the same. Kennedy can kill off access to vaccines and make millions of dollars while he does it. Kids might die, but Robert Kennedy can keep cashing in.
Senator, I support vaccines. I support the childhood schedule. I will do that. The only thing I want is good science, and that's it.
How about then say you won't make money off what you do as Secretary of HHS?
Before we go to Senator Tillis, I think it would be important for me to make it very clear that Mr. Kennedy has gone through the same Office of Government Ethics process as every single other nominee in the Finance Committee this year and in previous administrations. In addition to listing his assets, including the items that you've identified, he has signed an ethics letter that has been reviewed by the Office of Government Ethics concerning any possible conflict in light of its functions and the nominee's proposed duties. And we have a letter from the Office of Government Ethics that he hasn't complied completely with all applicable laws and regulations governing conflicts of interest.
Mr. Chairman, point of information here. Have we had a single nominee come through who's made $2.5 million off suing one of the entities that it would be regulating and plans to keep getting a take of every lawsuit in the future? Have we had that before?
I haven't reviewed the past documentation of every other nominee's financial interests, and so no. But I know that every single time we get a nominee, their financial interests are attacked. That's why we have the Office of Government Ethics. That's why they've reviewed everything that's in his record, and that's why he has even, I think, and I don't know that I want to ask him to get into it, but he has listed his assets and has gone through a discussion of the responsibilities under our ethics laws and has complied with all of those requirements.
First off, Senator Warren actually opens by agreeing with Kennedy that Big Pharma has too much power in Washington. And look, I'll give credit where it's due. She's right. Big Pharma is all over D.C., buying influence and pushing for mandates and profits over the American people. But here's where it gets rich. She asks Kennedy if he'll commit to not taking a dime from any drug company or healthcare company for 4 years after he leaves office. Kennedy says, sure, I won't take their money. Boom, done. But Warren, as always, is not satisfied. She tries to paint Kennedy as some sort of villain because he's earned money as a lawyer suing vaccine manufacturers. Now let's think about this, Patriots. Isn't it the American way to stand up to big corporations in court when they actually do wrong? Isn't that what trial lawyers are for? The left loves suing companies until it's one of their own targets. Warren then demands that Kennedy not only avoid working for drug companies, but also stop earning money from lawsuits against them, as if defending ordinary Americans harmed by these companies is now some kind of crime. Patriots, this is classic leftist hypocrisy. If Kennedy was suing Big Oil or Big Tobacco, Warren would be throwing him a parade. She tries to make him look greedy for earning a living. $2.5 million over 2 years as a lawyer, which, let's be honest, is nothing compared to what these big pharmaceutical CEOs and lobbyists are making. It's called doing your job. If he's helping victims and winning cases, that's the American legal system working as intended. But here's the real kicker. She basically accuses Kennedy of planning to use the power of the HHS to sabotage vaccines and make himself rich. She goes on this wild rant about how he could rig government panels, change vaccine rules, and open the floodgates to lawsuits for his own profit. It's an absolute conspiracy theory on her part. And she says, kids might die, but Robert Kennedy can keep cashing in. Hold on. Let's talk about who's really been profiting off this system. For years, Big Pharma and their government cronies have made billions rushing experimental products to market, while the media and leftist politicians silence anyone who asks questions. Kennedy has been a thorn in their side, demanding transparency and accountability. Isn't that what we want from our leaders? Someone who won't just rubber stamp whatever Big Pharma wants? Kennedy, to his credit, stays calm and says, I support vaccines. I support the childhood schedule. All I want is good science. That's the reasonable position. No one's saying throw out all vaccines. He's saying, let's make sure they're safe, let's have honest science, and let's not be bullied by corporate interests or political hacks. And then, the committee chairman steps in and clarifies. Kennedy has gone through the full government ethics process, signed all the necessary conflict of interest letters, and is in compliance with the law, just like every other nominee. Warren pouts and tries to make it sound like this is unprecedented, but the fact is every nominee has financial history. What matters is transparency and following the rules. Let's be real, Patriots. The left only cares about conflicts of interest when it's someone they dislike. When it's Fauci, Pfizer, or some Obama holdover, they look the other way. But if it's someone who dares to challenge the establishment, suddenly every dollar is suspect. Kennedy is a rare breed, a Democrat willing to stand up to Big Pharma, and the left can't stand it. They want HHS secretaries who will rubber stamp every mandate, every lockdown, every untested shot, and put our kids last, not first. Look, I may not agree with Kennedy on everything, but I'll take someone who's willing to fight the swamp and demand accountability over another corrupt bureaucrat who's bought and paid for by the pharmaceutical industry. The American people deserve transparency, freedom of choice, and leaders who answer to us, not to the highest bidder. So, next time the left screams conflict of interest, remember, they're just mad that someone is finally challenging the system, and they're terrified of losing control. That's it for today, Patriots. If you believe in medical freedom, transparency, and holding Big Pharma accountable, smash that like button, subscribe, and share this video. Let's keep fighting for our country, our families, and our freedom. God bless America.